On the morning of December 30th, 2025, their children woke to find both parents dead in their bedroom, shot 16 times with a suppressed pistol. The killer had traveled 325 miles through the night to execute them. What followed was an 11-day investigation that would reveal a surgeon's obsession that had festered for nearly a decade. Spencer Louie Tipe grew up in Mason, Ohio, the kind of person everyone seemed to gravitate towards. Academic, warm, and driven by a genuine desire to help people, he pursued biology at Ohio State University before completing his Doctor of Dental Surgery there in 2017. He eventually joined Athens Dental Depot about 75 miles southeast of Columbus, where patients loved him and colleagues respected him. He also volunteered with Big Brothers Big Sisters, mentoring young people in his community. Spencer was exactly the kind of person who made the world around him better simply by being in it. Monique Frances Sabaturski had also grown up in Ohio, graduating from Ohio State in 2009, before earning her master's in early childhood education 2 years later. She was bright, caring, and driven by the same desire to help others. But Monique's path had been harder. Her first marriage had left deep scars, and when it ended in 2017, she was determined to rebuild her life quietly and carefully. Then in 2018, she met Spencer through online dating. Friends said it was like watching someone come back to life. He was patient, kind, and above all, he made her feel safe. By 2020, they had purchased a home together at 1411 North 4th Street in Columbus's Wellinan Park neighborhood. They married in December of that year, exchanging vows in the very living room where they planned to raise their family. For Monique, it felt like finally exhaling after years of holding her breath. To understand what happened to Spencer and Monique Tipe, we need to go back to 2015 and to the man Monique had married before him. Michael David McKee was on the surface everything you would expect from a promising young surgeon. Born in Zanesville, Ohio, he had attended Ohio State. Music completed his medical degree there in 2014 and begun a surgical residency at Virginia Tech Carilion Clinic in Roanoke, Virginia. When he and Monique married on the 22nd of August 2015, they looked like a perfect match. Two Ohio State graduates, both intelligent, both ambitious, starting their lives together. The reality was very different. Within months, family members would later tell investigators the marriage had become a nightmare. According to a probable cause affidavit unsealed in January 2026, multiple witnesses confirmed that Michael had been physically and emotionally abusive. He had forced unwanted sex upon Monique and had strangled her. He had told her he could kill her at any time, that he would find her, that she would always be his wife. Rob Meisel, who would later become Spencer's brother-in-law, said Michael was very emotionally abusive to her, music, to the point that it changed her as a person. The marriage lasted just 7 months of actual cohabitation. Monique filed for divorce in Franklin County in May 2017. It was finalized that June. On paper, it looked like a clean break, but for Monique, the fear never left. Meanwhile, Michael drifted. After completing his surgical training in 2020 and a vascular surgery fellowship in Maryland in 2022, he moved through Virginia, California, Nevada, Colorado, and eventually Illinois, obtaining medical licenses and letting them lapse. In Las Vegas, a malpractice lawsuit was filed after a catheter fragment was left inside a patient under his supervision. When attorneys tried to serve him with legal papers, he had essentially vanished. By October 2024, he had resurfaced in Rockford, Illinois, working at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center and living in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. To colleagues, he was a surgeon managing a demanding career. But to those who knew his history with Monique, something far darker was taking shape. By December 2025, Spencer and Monique had built a beautiful life together. Their daughter was 4, their son was 1, and they were living in the house where they'd exchanged wedding vows 5 years earlier. Spencer was thriving at his dental practice, and the family seemed settled and happy, but someone had been watching them. On December 6, 2025, surveillance cameras captured Michael McKee entering the yard, surrounding the Tepe home at 1411 North 4th Street. He remained there for several hours. Spencer and Monique weren't home. They were out of state attending the Big Ten championship football game in Indianapolis. What's particularly unsettling is that Michael wasn't scheduled to work that day. He had driven 325 miles from Illinois to Ohio, spent hours watching an empty house, and then driven back. Something happened during that football game that revealed just how much Michael's presence in their lives still affected Monique. According to friends who were with them, Monique abruptly left the game at Halime and returned to their hotel. She was visibly upset about something involving her ex-husband. What exactly triggered her distress that day remains unknown, but it's clear that even 8 years after their divorce, Michael still had the power to instill fear in her. In the weeks that followed, Michael's silver SUV was spotted near the Tipe home on multiple occasions. But he was careful. He used different stolen license plates, sometimes an Ohio plate, sometimes an Arizona plate. A distinctive sticker on his vehicle was later found to have been scraped off with fresh marks visible when investigators eventually located the SUV. The pattern that emerged was one of methodical planning and surveillance. This wasn't an impulsive act of violence. This was something Michael had been building towards for weeks, possibly months. On December 19, 2025, something happened that would take on new significance in hindsight. At 2:31 in the morning, a neighbor living roughly a 3-minute walk from the Tepe home called 911. Someone was aggressively banging on her door, apparently trying to force entry. She whispered to the dispatcher, "So now they're smashing on my door. I think they're trying to get in." Columbus police have stated there is no known link to the Tepe case, but the timing is impossible to ignore. For investigators, the music evidence would later paint a picture of a man consumed by obsession. Michael had never accepted that his marriage to Monique was over. Despite the 8-year gap since their divorce, despite Monique's new life and marriage and children, he still saw her as his. The threats he'd made during their marriage, that she would always be his wife, that he could kill her at any time, weren't just words spoken in anger. They were a promise he intended to keep. By the early hours of December 30th, 2025, Michael McKee had everything in place for what he believed would be the perfect crime. He had studied the house. He knew the layout, the routines, the vulnerabilities. He had equipped himself with a 9mm pistol fitted with a suppressor, ensuring the attack would be as silent as it was deadly. He had left his mobile phone at the hospital where he worked, creating what he thought would be an unbreakable alibi. Most importantly, he had stolen license plates to mask his vehicle's identity and had spent weeks perfecting his approach to the house. Investigators believe the murders occurred between approximately 2 and 5 hours in the morning, with some analysts placing the precise time at roughly 3:50 to 3:52 a.m. based on surveillance footage. Police found no signs of forced entry, which remains one of the case's central mysteries. The aggravated burglary charge alleges Michael entered by force, stealth, or deception. But exactly how he gained access has never been publicly explained. Some investigators speculate that his hours-long surveillance visit on December 6th, when the family was away, may have provided an opportunity to copy a key or unlock a point of entry for later use. A ring camera in the alley next to the Tipe home captured a figure wearing light-colored trousers and a dark hooded jacket walking through during the crucial time window. Police would later identify this figure as Michael McKee. His silver SUV was also captured on neighborhood cameras, arriving shortly before the killings and departing shortly after. The entire operation from arrival to departure appears to have taken less than an hour. Inside the house, Spencer and Monique were asleep in their second-floor bedroom. Their 4-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son were sleeping in the next room along with the family's golden doodle. It was a scene of perfect domestic tranquility, a family at rest, safe in their own home. Michael made his way to the second floor and entered the master bedroom. What happened next was captured in horrifying detail by the subsequent autopsy reports. Both Spencer and Monique were found dressed for bed, still wearing their wedding rings. The attack was swift but brutal, with a total of 16 shots fired from the suppressed 9mm pistol. Monique was shot 9 times. 1 bullet struck her face, fracturing her cheekbone. 3 bullets hit her chest, damaging her lung and liver. Additional shots struck her arms, torso, hand, and forearm. Spencer was shot 7 times. One bullet hit his head near his left ear. Another struck his neck. 3 more bullets hit his torso, damaging vital organs. 2 additional shots struck his arms. What makes this attack particularly chilling is the evidence that both victims were awake and fighting for their lives. Both Spencer and Monique had defensive wounds. Spencer on his left hand and right arm near the elbow. Monique on her right forearm and right hand. Dr. Erica Armstrong, the deputy coroner who conducted the autopsies, found that both victims had died within seconds to minutes of the attack beginning. Forensic pathologist Nicole and Jimmy noted that hemorrhage was present in all 9 of Monique's wounds, confirming her heart was still beating with each shot. The suppressor attached to Michael's weapon likely explains why the couple's children, sleeping in the next room, weren't awakened by the gunfire. They would wake hours later to find their world changed forever. 3 spent 9mm shell casings were found at the scene, and investigators recovered 2 bullets and a bullet fragment from Monique's body, plus 1 bullet from Spencer's arm. After the killings, Michael retraced his route back to Illinois, likely believing he had committed the perfect crime. His phone remained at the hospital, maintaining his alibi. The stolen plates would make his vehicle difficult to trace. The suppressor had kept the attack silent. But Michael had underestimated the power of modern surveillance technology and the determination of investigators who wouldn't rest until Spencer and Monique had justice. December 30th, 2025, started as a typical Monday morning at Athens Dental Depot. Staff arrived expecting to see Dr. Spencer Tipe, who was the kind of dentist who arrived early, stayed late, and never canceled appointments without notice. When Spencer failed to appear by his usual time, his employer, Dr. Mark Valrose, became concerned. At 8:58 a.m., Dr. Valrose made a call that would begin one of the most intensive investigations in Columbus police history. He is always on time, and he would contact us if there was any issues, Dr. Valrose told the 911 dispatcher. I don't know how else to say this, but we are very, very concerned. An officer was dispatched for a wellness check, but there was a crucial error. The officer went to the wrong address. Police Chief Elaine Bryant would later confirm that the officer did everything that he was supposed to do at the incorrect location, but precious time was lost. Additional calls followed as concern mounted. Around 10:03 a.m., one of Spencer's friends decided to check on the family himself. He made his way to their home and peered through a window. What he saw would haunt him forever, he said in his frantic 911 call. Several calls on that. What's changed since the last person I talked to? There's a body. There's a body. There's a body inside. Yeah. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let me get you on the line with the medic. Okay. Stay on the line. What's going on there? There's the body. Our friend wasn't in his phone. We just did a wellness shift. We just came here and he appears dead. His blood. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed in there. They can't get closer to that. They can tell he's obviously not breathing or anything. Yeah. They're they look like they definitely cuddled, all right. In the background of the call, the heartbreaking sound of children screaming could be heard. Spencer and Monique's 4-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son were alive and unharmed physically, but they had spent hours alone in the house with their parents' bodies. Both victims were pronounced dead at 10:11 a.m. The scene that greeted investigators was one of shocking brutality, but there were also signs of the life they had built together. Family photos lined the walls. Children's toys were scattered throughout the house. A Christmas tree stood in the living room, presents still wrapped beneath it for a new year that would never come. Detective teams immediately recognized this wasn't a random home invasion or robbery gone wrong. Nothing appeared to be missing from the house. This was a targeted attack, and investigators had a strong suspicion about who might be responsible. The couple's family members began arriving at the scene, their grief palpable. Rob Missler, Spencer's brother-in-law, would later speak for the family. This person didn't just take 2 lives. They took a son and a daughter, a brother and a sister, an aunt, and an uncle. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect was the question that would haunt the family forever. As Rob Meller put it, how do you tell a 4-year-old that she's never going to see her parents again? For investigators, the priorities were clear. They needed to process the scene thoroughly, gather every piece of evidence, and begin building a case against the person they increasingly believed was responsible, Michael McKee, Monique's ex-husband. The challenge would be proving it. The first breakthrough came from the surveillance footage. The Ring camera in the alley next to the Tepe home had captured a figure in light-colored trousers and a dark hooded jacket walking through during the estimated time of the murders. While the image quality wasn't perfect, it was enough to establish that someone had been in the area. More importantly, neighborhood cameras had captured a silver SUV arriving shortly before the killings and departing shortly after. License plate reader data began revealing a disturbing pattern. The SUV had been fitted with different stolen license plates on different occasions. Sometimes an Ohio plate, sometimes an Arizona plate. This wasn't random. This was someone who had planned meticulously to avoid detection. When investigators traced the vehicle through various cameras, they were able to follow its route back towards Illinois, towards the area where Michael McKee lived and worked. But Michael thought he had the perfect alibi. His mobile phone had been deliberately left at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center, where he worked. The phone showed no activity for approximately 17 hours from December 29th through noon on December 30th. When initially questioned, Michael told police he had been on call and had reserved an on-call room at the hospital, but investigators quickly discovered he wasn't actually scheduled to work that day. The drive from Michael's home in Chicago to Columbus, Ohio, was 325 miles, about a 5-hour journey each way. If he had left his phone at the hospital and driven through the night, he could have committed the murders and returned to Illinois, all while his phone provided what he thought was an unbreakable alibi. On January 5, 2026, Columbus police made a strategic decision. They publicly released the alley surveillance footage, seeking tips from the community. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 4 days later, on January 9th, investigators made a crucial discovery. They located Michael's silver SUV in the parking lot of OSF St. Anthony Medical Center in Rockford, Illinois. The vehicle had fresh scrape marks, where a distinctive sticker had been recently peeled off. Evidence of Michael's attempts to alter his vehicle's appearance. The pieces were falling into place, but investigators needed more. They needed the murder weapon, and they needed evidence that would conclusively link Michael to the crime scene. The next day, ATF agents and Columbus police moved in for the arrest. They found Michael at a Chick-fil-A restaurant near his workplace. He was taken into custody without incident, though those who watched the booking video later noted his remarkably calm demeanor, but the most damning evidence came from the search of Michael's Lincoln Park condominium in Chicago. Investigators found multiple weapons, including a 9mm pistol equipped with a suppressor that produced a preliminary ballistic match to the crime scene evidence. Combined with the surveillance footage, the vehicle evidence, and the phone data showing Michael's attempt to create a false alibi, prosecutors believed they had a strong case. Michael McKee was extradited to Ohio on January 20th, 2026, and booked into the James A. Cons Correction Center. A Franklin County grand jury had returned a devastating 5-count indictment. 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of aggravated burglary. If convicted, Michael faced life in prison. Prosecutors chose not to seek the death penalty, with Franklin County Prosecutor Shayla Favor explaining, "We consulted closely with the families of Spencer and Monique Tipe throughout this process and are honoring their wishes accordingly." For the defense, Michael had retained one of Ohio's most formidable criminal defense attorneys, Diane Minaj. The defense faced a mountain of evidence, but the mystery of how he entered the house without forced entry remained unexplained, a potential weakness prosecutors would need to address. A GoFundMe campaign organized by Spencer's cousin raised over $238,000 from more than 2,000 donors to support the couple's children. The next hearing is scheduled for April 16, 2026.